Both of you have toured all over the world. Like, what is it? Can you tell people who haven't done that, what is it really like to tour? Like, because in my mind, it's growing up.
Ocean.
When I was growing up, I was like, okay, great, see Paris, you go to the museums and all this. And
I have a question for you. Have you ever had diarrhea in 3 different continents in one day?
Oh my God, that's going to be the opener right there. That's
right
so
where Pangaea is, you know, like
exactly.
that general zone.
Exactly.
Have you ever had diarrhea?
The 4 corners, stepped in one, stepped in the other.
Oh my God.
See the world, they say, Ocean.
Yeah.
See the world.
These 2 knuckleheads are my best friends. And yeah, it's a best friends episode. So if you don't believe a grown man should have best friends, let's just say I've spent my last many birthdays with these nuts. Here they are as brilliant musicians, pretending to be well-adjusted adults. And here's your requisite young, awkward photos. Okay, here's one more. Yeah, I guess it's true what they say. It really does get worse before it gets better. We've all gone through a lot together. We've all yelled at each other at one time or another. I played at both of their weddings. They've been on both of my albums. And I was the first person at all to see one of their kids after she was born. Best Friends episode. Sam and Qasim share an incredible sense of humor that I knew would be a hilarious counterbalance to their hey, no big deal flavor of nerdy intellectualism. And it turned out even better than I'd ever hoped. Plus, the music is always killing with these 2 guys. They both have a way of making anyone sound better when they play with them. Qasim and Sam both have a long list of accomplishments and accolades, but that's boring and we have a strict non-praise policy in our little group, so I'll just post some links below. Let's dive in. Hope you enjoy. Say your last name the way you like it to be said. Minaie.
No.
Minaie.
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 Minaie. But Minaie, it all works.
Sometimes I tell people it's Minaie.
The word is Mina and then E. So Minaie.
Minaie.
Yeah.
All right, well, whatever. I don't care. Sam, Minaie, Qasim Naqvi, welcome to our little show. Really happy to have you here. What's going on, Qasim, with these T-shirts? Can you explain yourself? I don't want you to try to explain like who you are as a person yet. We'll get into that.
No, I'll never do that. It's just a little side project.
He actually took some Ambien last night.
Yeah.
And he woke up with these in his mail.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember quite what happened.
And just really quick, you've spoken to an attorney, and this is all legal. And
Apparently, it is. Yeah, there's some loophole that is applicable. So
Yeah.
you know.
It's called-
But yeah, I just wanted like just something stupid to make, and also when people look at them, they're like, is
look
this man?
twice.
very confused.
What's wrong with this person?
yeah, exactly. And you like that. That's kind of your thing,
That's
right?
what I like. Yeah, I like to.
I wore this shirt at a bar in Middle Village like a couple weeks ago watching one of the Euro Cup games.
Yeah.
And then people were like, oh, nice.
Yeah, that's not Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. And they're like, don't worry about it.
It's like that poor man.
He went
So-
to Canal Street and got swindled.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
your two says Fleetwood Mac, and it's actually
It's Khan.
it's Khan from Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 2. Written by Gene Roddenberry.
But they look like they could be.
They-
like they live in Laurel Canyon in,
Yeah,
in
exactly.
1972.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the whole reasoning for.
And yours says Minority Report. And who is this on it?
This is from Short Circuit 2.
Okay.
And this man is. He's supposed to be Indian, but he was actually played by a white person in the film.
Okay.
And so the title is a sort of a play on that whole sort of.
A joke no one will ever get.
Yeah, exactly. That's why people are confused.
This one's my favorite. This one says Steel Magnolias.
You know what I love about
Every time
that?
I laugh about it.
I love how the red light on ET's wig sort of
It
matches
matches
the
the
red of the font, and that sort of ties it all together.
So I wanted to ask about comedy and what is going on? Because Qasim, when you open your mouth, like for years and years, rooms full of people just bust out laughing, and it's like the most surreal, random, improvised stuff. And I always ask you, where does it come from?
I don't know. I mean, you know, like I have two older brothers, and they're really pretty funny, and I think
torturous.
and torturous, and they had like they had a very sinister, dark sort of way that they would abuse me as a child.
Yeah.
That wasn't physical. It was all like purely psychological. There were these
Intellectual.
elaborate, and there would be these like blueprints, like timeline of what they're gonna do, and like so.
That's so creepy.
I mean, I'm exaggerating a little.
No,
bit,
I don't
but-
think you are exaggerating. I've heard some
But
stories.
there was some planning, but yeah. So I think, and also my my dad just had kind of a pretty funny sense of humor, and a lot of people in my family. So,
But do you
and we
think
grew
that-
up watching comedies all the time, like
Right.
as children, and
But it's different than normal people. Like, do you think that this has to do with? I'm asking if there's like a bridge between this and creativity and composing and performing.
Well, I mean, I think that.
Do you think we
yeah.
practice creativity through like cracking wise, like making wisecracks all the time? Because we're all like that, you know.
Well, I think like improv comedy is like, like improvised music. It's kind of like a human endeavor. It's something that we improvise as people. That's what we do. Like, even when we're not making jokes.
On the same lines, like, how do you guys think that playing different instruments affects our personalities? Because don't tell me for 1 second that all trombone players don't have, even though the people that are the least like trombone players still share some sort of personality traits. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
like, do you think you have more
Like
of
fart
an
jokes,
ego
trombone
'cause you're
players.
a saxophone player?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see. Narcissism,
I'm also a Leo, so it's like
hubris,
double.
I know.
Let's see. Yeah.
I mean, especially bass players, I think they kind of, especially if I can say this, male bass players seem to always have this kind of like coven where they hang out all the time. Saxophone players don't do this. We like see each other in the street.
There's a little
How's the gig? But it's
brother
not the,
sisterhood with bassists. Hey,
I
what to
don't
do
know.
with you guys?
I don't know. Do you think like playing drums does influence your personality, or playing bass does influence your personality?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I've been playing drums for probably like 32 years now or something. So it's like, I think anything you do it for long enough, it like seeps into other aspects of your thinking. And it could be anything you do for a long time, I think.
Yeah.
On the same lines, I was curious how you chose your instrument, or if your instrument chose you, because that could be based on personalid too.
I never thought about that.
Yeah,
How your
yeah.
instrument like changes who you are.
Yeah.
I always get asked the other way, like, why'd you pick that instrument? But then it's like, well, what did that instrument do to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we give
Over time.
9-year-olds instruments, and we're like, which one do you want? And I know that like out of the 60 kids I teach a year, one of them is picking something that they may do for the rest of their life.
Right.
I'm always like, choose wisely.
Choose wisely.
It's like it's gonna stick with you.
But when you're a kid, you don't, well, and maybe I speak for myself, but I would just make decisions in a snap. Like, oh, what instrument do you want to play in the band? And I had this whole idea that I was going to play clarinet in the school band. At the very last second, the teacher said, no one's picked French horn yet. I was like, okay, I'll pick it.
Yeah.
Forget that you
So-
played French horn. That you played French horn.
Yeah, I played for a long time, and so for me, that feels like that's part of my personality. No one else was doing something, and it was something a little different, and I was like, sign me up.
Yeah,
So, I don't know, what's your story?
And now you're a pianist.
Yeah, exactly.
My brothers, they bought me my first drum set.
Nice.
And encouraged me to like listen to jazz and experimental music when I could have easily just kind of listened to Pearl Jam or like the popular music of the time. They were like, no, you're gonna listen to John Zorn and like
Great.
Agartha and like all this weird stuff, so.
I asked Kat, I was like, what key are you gonna play? And she's like, I don't know what notes I can play with these things. It's just notes. Ready? You both performed all over the world. You both toured. I wanted to ask you to get your passport and bring it to us. I don't know if it's new, non-stamped, but if you had to get a new one. But like, I'm sure it's ridiculous,
I have
right?
4 passports.
Yeah, you're like Jason Bourne or something. How many countries have you been to?
I have no idea.
What if you had to jelly bean count? 30, 50, 80, 120, what?
80?
Wow.
No, maybe less. I don't know.
Yeah. What is it really?
Is Nevada a country?
Well, it will be soon.
They sure as hell behave like they are another country, huh?
It's gonna happen soon.
It's gonna happen soon.
That's right.
New Nevada.
Burners infiltrate.
Yeah.
Welcome to New
Is that
Nevada.
where Burning Man is? It's in Nevada?
Yeah, it's near Reno.
Kat goes to Burning Man every year. She's been like,
Got my necklace.
Oh
Oh,
my
there's-
God! You go to Burning Man. What's going on with that? Are
We
they
used to play there.
You used to play there?
I'm from Reno, Nevada. Yeah.
Oh, it's gotta be fun.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
so having been, both of you have toured all over the world, like, what is it, can you tell people who haven't done that, what is it really like to tour? Like, because in my mind, it's growing
Well,
up.
Ocean.
When I was growing up, I was like, okay, great, see Paris, you go to the museums and all this. And
No.
I have a
there's no
question
time.
for you. Have you ever had diarrhea in 3 different continents in one day?
Oh my God, that's going to be the
Oh, no.
opener right there. That's so
Right where
perfect.
Pangaea is,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
general zone. Have
Exactly.
you ever had diarrhea?
The 4 corners.
Yeah, the
Stepped
4
in one, stepped in the other.
Oh my God.
See the world, they say, Ocean.
Yeah.
See the world.
But I mean, do you get to hang out in these cities? Do you really?
It depends on the band you're playing with, really.
Yeah.
Like with the big acts and stuff like that, you don't see anything.
Why don't you pack up and get out of here?
Yeah,
Because you're kind of ruining the situation.
This is going way.
Look, I mean, for
so
us,
exactly like I pictured
like,
it.
you know, there's no time to
no
experience
time.
any culture. It's like you wake up at 4 a.m, lobby call, go fly to some other country, go straight to sound check,
Yeah.
go to your hotel for 4 hours, and if you have time, you can like walk around but
So in certain bands, you could see the world and really never having seen the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
never experience anything. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with the big bands, if you're going into like a theater or like a small arena or something like that, the tour bus takes you right under the thing. And sometimes you can't even figure out how to get out of the arena.
Wow.
Like we like to try to go
Yeah.
for jogs or
Like
something
Vegas,
in between sound
a
checks.
casino or
It's
something.
exactly like that.
Yeah. But you experience the energy of like when you play in front of people, and
Yeah.
I suppose there's something to that. You know, like you experience a culture in that way.
So what's up with careers in music? You guys both do so many different things. Like you're performers, obviously. You're Qasim, you're a composer. You're doing stuff for.
Slash
composer.
performer.
Yeah, no, but you're doing stuff right now for what did you say it was for masterclass? You're doing something.
Yeah, so I've been writing.
Can we
these-
talk about that? Is that already?
I think we can.
Okay, all right.
I think this will come out. Like,
Contract isn't signed yet.
if it doesn't, you can just.
Arbitration.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm making sort of background music for one of their episodes.
Right, and you've done stuff for High Maintenance and documentaries that have been nominated for Academy Awards and all that. And Sam, you're a mastering engineer. You do all kinds of stuff for recording. You guys aren't just giggers, 5
No.
minutes a week or something like
No.
that. Did you have something like that in mind early on and before time, or did this sort of just kind of things fall in your lap? How did your career come about?
Well, it's like the type of music, I don't know. It's like if I was just doing one thing, I'd be really, I wouldn't say I'd be like disengaged or something like that.
Right.
But I feel like when I'm stretching myself as far as like how much I need to learn and like what my capacity is, I feel like that's when I'm sort of at my best on all the things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what
So
you mean.
recording, mixing, and mastering was just sort of like, it was fun and it's really hard and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Playing
He's a
music
great
is the
mastering
thing.
engineer.
Well, thank you.
Mastered.
He mastered one of my
both
albums. Yeah,
so-
yeah, and
Which you're both on, by the way. But yeah, I like to teach kids. It's if I won the lottery, I might not keep doing it so much, but I do enjoy it because it brings me out of this mode of like the pressure of like I got to perform so well. I can just help them with something, and they when they learn like a dinky little melody, they're so happy, and it makes me remember like how great music
Yeah.
can be just for the sense of music. But during COVID, all I was doing was teaching kids on Zoom, which was complicated already, but the balance went so out of whack that I just playing with you guys like we did just a minute ago was just really special.
Yeah.
Felt, you could
It's the
feel
first time that
energy.
we've played together since the pandemic.
What's your name?
Minority,
Who are you?
Minority Report.
And it's the
Dirk
first time
Diggler?
we played together ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I basically just got you all here on camera so I could ask you, like, how do I have a career? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
I mean, jokes aside, here's another question. How do you stay committed to music? All three of you are having these epic adventures that are coming into your life. Marriages, houses, kids, all of that stuff. All of you are involved in all of that stuff. How do you stay committed to music with other epic things opening up in your life? Or is it just kind of like, is it partitioned or is it go into it? Like, are you playing for your child? Like, what's going on?
I mean, for me, like it's it's like a lesson in efficiency. So it's like instead of having 12 hours a day to work, now I have 6 hours a day. you
Yeah.
know? So it's like you have to, I guess, learn to be more efficient with your time.
Do you feel like that
And,
cleans some clutter out when you go to write music? Or
Yeah, I think so, and also it's like you become more sure about projects that you do want to do and you don't want to do. Because you
we
have
were
to be
talking
more
about the
efficient.
same thing.
You can't just say yes to everything.
Right.
So it almost streamlines your sort of your path in a certain way. But
All this talk about growing up, it reminds me, we went out a couple nights ago and we were talking about this, but there was a time when we lived together, Qasim, in Bed-Stuy, when we were too young, and we were so poor.
I wasn't young. I was
That-
like 33 years, 32.
But we were so
young.
ridiculously poor that we would go to Zebulon to hear music, just to hear music, to check a group out, and you have to buy a drink. That's the rule. It's a
Yeah.
1 drink minimum. And we would share a whiskey. And I remember the waitress coming, and she
That's all the money we had.
Yeah.
for one between the two of us.
Oh, I can relate, yes.
Because we just wanted to see the music, and I remember the waitress looking at us, and I knew she was gonna be like, "You can't do." And then she saw our eyes, and
The
she was
hunger,
like-
you know?
Just like,
She was like, "Okay, it's fine," But like, do you look back on that time romantically, or are you like, "Thank God that's over"? Like, how do you feel about that now?
I mean, it was interesting because that was when the economy tanked.
Right.
2008,
Yeah.
and I think that everyone was going through that on some level, and for me, it kind of made it more acceptable because a lot of people were suffering and poor, and so I didn't feel ashamed about it.
No.
But yeah, it was also a busy time. We just graduated Cal Arts. We were all playing together and starting projects, and I don't know. What do you have to say about that?
Is there
no, you got it covered.
something to the poor, starving artist? Or do you think maybe
Yeah, you gotta
that's like,
suffer to play the blues.
Yeah, is that like an old-fashioned term that's out the window now?
I think it is. I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of the answers I'd always say to a lot of these questions you're asking is it's sometimes I think, and not to downgrade the way we focus on music and want to make it a core part of our being and stuff like that. I think sometimes, I guess this quote Wayne Shorter said, someone was asked him, they started their question with, so music is your life, and they were going to continue to ask the question, and he said, no, music is not my life. It's my life's work. That's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. I feel like, there's a lot of ways of finding external sort of I don't know, like an external muse, and whether some people it's struggle or something like that. But
Yeah.
for me personally, it's always just been something that I'm like, music is music. That's what it is for me, and that's what it is.
Right.
It's not, I don't have to read Siddhartha to get
Sure.
to want to write a song or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the being able to access about as many different emotional points in our life when we make music, you know what I mean? To be able to access as many different emotional sort of states as possible, and to create work that's dynamic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, you know, yeah, the dark stuff is good. It's good to have
Oh,
that.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I know you think that.
The murkiness, you know, to take
You're not
that.
a positive person. I would call you like Tracee
It's
too. I would
interesting.
say you're the happiest. You're
The happiest asshole.
No,
that-
you're like happy cynics. It's like Larry David or something. Like it's really
Yeah, yeah.
joyous. Going back to touring, do you know, having been all these places and performed for people in these venues, do you think that people, how do you see the arts around the world as compared to here? You know, we all know the stories about funding in Germany or Japan or wherever is way more than it is here. Does that come through with like audiences?
You know, we already know that's the case, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I have thought about a lot, especially during COVID, and like how music's going to come back because it hasn't been around.
Right.
Like we know that the U.S. is very poorly funded. That is sort of extra. You know, like it feeds into all aspects of how people enjoy arts, right? Because it's always going to kind of trickle down. On an interesting note, though, one thing I have noticed is I've been realizing some of my favorite places to play. You know, you play these big festivals or whatever, and then you know it's fun. But it's the same thing when I used to tour like little bands around Idaho and Montana and all that kind of stuff, and then you'd go to this really small town,
right?
And that'd be the most fun you had, because they don't get everything every day. So when they get something, they really appreciate it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with that. It's like you can play Jazz Avienne or something like that for like 20,000 people in an arena, but then the next day you're just playing like a rinky-dinky 50-seat club in like the middle of South Germany or something like that, and that'll be the one.
Right.
And so I'm actually kind of curious to see how, like I played one of my first shows after COVID just a couple weeks ago, and it was a show in New York I haven't experienced ever, I don't think. Like people were so genuinely happy to be there.
I had that too last
Yeah.
weekend. Yeah. Somebody said, my friend said at that gig last weekend, he said, it's going to be like this. I said, yeah, maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, like, we'll see what happens. You've told me several times that you have a disdain for virtuosity, and obviously we all like enjoy hearing somebody who's mastered an instrument.
I don't have a disdain for it in classical music, or you know that type of thing where that's what it's about. You know, it's about interpreting someone else's music.
Yeah.
In a
What
very
my question was going to be,
way,
what
but,
exactly what kind of virtuosity, quote unquote, are you talking about?
I'm talking about like with improvised music
Yeah.
and jazz and you know, it's funny. Like I think with jazz education, it's all about emulation. So like emulating the soloistic sort of approach of another great musician, like whether it's McCoy Tyner or Elvin Jones or something like that, like trying to get close to how they play, and then codifying that, where you basically take something that they've basically were creating in a completely intuitive, in the moment way,
Right.
and then you have the people who will just, you know, try to transcribe an entire Elvin Jones solo and then like memorize it. And in doing that, somehow they will, you know, like recreate the essence of Elvin Jones. And, you know, and that's something that I've always like never quite understood with like jazz education.
Right.
Because how that music was created, yes, those artists were accessing like a system that they were learning for a very long time, like Coltrane or whatever, when they're improvising. So there's a system. But the other half is just them and their life and some deep thing that's just like personal to them that you can't, no amount of notation will. But so that's one thing. And then, yeah, virtuosity, all I can speak of is like my feeling about drummers today. And yeah, everything, there's a lot of precision and a lot of subdivision of time,
Right.
where like things are divided in a very exact,
It's like unnuanced.
very dense kind of way into like a fine powder, and like, and I just don't hear enough mistakes, like, you know, because I feel like in mistakes, it can go either way. Like it can fall, but if you make a mistake confidently, it opens up this whole other dimension that you can't write down. Like it's something that would be impossible to, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
the musical moment, like Wadada would talk
I don't think
about,
you're
you know,
notating Elvin Jones really accurately. I don't think that's going to happen.
To kind of elaborate on how I feel about what Qasim was saying is that I think people, like, just generally, like I just see students, and especially students that come to New York to study at specific schools.
Yep.
They're practicing a whole lot and not playing a whole lot of music.
Right.
And it's
Well
playing
played.
with other people.
they're not,
Or-
well, even when they're playing with other people, the way they go about playing with other people is
Yeah.
still in a very personal you might say a virtuosic
here's
way.
my pattern,
This is
here's
what I'm
your
going to do.
pattern.
Yeah, check this out. I can do this.
Yeah.
And then you listen to the entirety of the thing, and it feels empty, or something like that. And then you see some like crappy band from Ohio that just want to play it for their friends, and you start crying because the music is so deep, because they don't really have a connection to their instruments.
Only to each other.
Only to each other.
Yeah.
And that's where exactly.
Because even Bird was like,
And I don't mean that in a degrading way. Sorry, like they don't have a connection to their instruments. I mean, I'm talking about like almost like a narcissistic connection, like a addictive connection.
Yeah.
Where like, I got to practice 12 hours a day, and if I don't, then I'm a failure and I'm not good. And it's like, whoa, take it easy. Go to the park, play catch.
Yeah, there's a lot of like beating up of oneself
Yeah.
too. I mean, with all these, anything that you like go to school, just I'm sure classical music, people
That's the worst, actually.
killing each other, and themselves and
Whiplash.
Yeah.
We do this segment called Wish I'd Known Then, and it's just a chance to say something if you want, that maybe if there's like a 16-year-old kid in Stockholm listening to this right now, like something you wish you had known.
Unless you're an independently wealthy person, or you're in a band that blows up like as soon as you get out of high school or college or something like that. Most of the time, you have to engage with the admin and the tedium of like getting yourself out there in the world.
Oh, that's what I should do. Oh, okay. I
Which
have
is
no
not-
idea how to do that.
I mean, but me too. I mean, it took me a while to
Romanticize.
What's that?
I was thinking that even when I was young, if you had said that to me, I'd be like, yeah. Like,
Right.
everyone romanticizes.
Well, we think that it's all just gonna,
You're totally
that
right.
the idealism, like it's just gonna happen, Just getting your music into the ears of people, of promoters, and also that's another thing with jazz education, maybe classical music too, where this feeling that you're never good enough. And you feel like, I can only reach out to these people unless my music is at a certain level of, like virtuosity or whatever, And by doing that, you're always just setting up this hurdle for yourself where like it's never good enough, and then whatever, 15 years goes by. And so that was something that I did. Like I was not the most confident sort of musician. I always felt like my thing wasn't ready yet, and I waited and I held, and so that's what I wish I had done differently.
Nice.
Nobody cares enough about you than yourself. You know what I mean? So like if someone says no, I'm not interested, it's not the end of the world,
All right, I have a question for you two. You guys are like as American as apple pie, okay? So like we went to the Baseball Hall of Fame for your bachelor party. Okay, that's what you wanted to do. And I know you've seen like every episode of Beverly Hills 90210 100 times or something, right?
He loves Friends. That's his thing.
He has a fan group for
Chandler.
90210.
I like watch it in
Chandler.
I like watch it in a closet with like the poster
That's right.
Friends like, on the ceiling and
Dressed in some 90s gear.
With an old like flip DVD player that people used to bring on airplanes.
yes.
So I always felt like growing up that I was kind of stretched between two worlds. I had this music thing. I'm a freak. I'm not like normal people. And I kind of, to be honest, sort of kept it a little bit secret. I didn't keep it secret, but I didn't like really talk about it. I was sort of popular in high school and all that. And like, I didn't really talk about it with
It's really
people.
taking a turn.
It wasn't, listen, it wasn't a secret. It wasn't something that It wasn't a secret. It wasn't like my dirty little secret, but I just didn't really, it was two different things. And I would like stay at home and practice and not go to the party sometimes when I was 16, and tell people I was sick and not tell them why I was really staying home. So I always felt like there was these two worlds. But I think for you two, there's maybe a third, and I wanted to ask about that because, my family, they don't talk about Scotland or, they don't talk about like Scots-Irish culture at all, or even Appalachian culture, really, to be honest. But you guys, your parents both moved here, right, as adults to this country. And so, you were talking about the show Rami and how that meant something to you guys. You were talking about that. So I just wanted to ask, like, what was it like to grow up as a straight-up American kid but also like you have this music thing, and then there's also this other thing about like tied to the old country or your.
I don't know if you felt the same way, but there was such a you realize it now that you're older, but there was such a pressure to assimilate, and that came from, and our parents didn't realize it either. For us personally, like there was a war called the Persian Gulf War that had nothing to do with Persia.
Right.
So there was like, you try to distance yourself from, being like that. And we realized that, it's just, it was all part of this like soup. It's like, yes, all this culture came to us, and I'm thankful that I got that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I was getting it, obviously.
You mean from your parents?
From my parents, okay. But then there's also weird stuff too that like you don't think about till you're older. Like for instance, I speak Farsi, but I never learned how to read or write. Like that just didn't. Mm-hmm. And my parents weren't
Farsi.
Yeah. And my parents didn't like. It wasn't.
Right.
I think it was important to them. I think it was important to them, but it wasn't like. Like, let's put it this way. The other Iranians that lived in Reno in the Sparks area, not a lot of them speak Farsi at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the first generationers, like we were, they don't even speak Farsi. They only speak English to their parents.
Yeah.
And so, like, I always feel lucky that, like, oh, okay, at least I can speak Farsi,
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, for me, like, my parents were, they did move here from Pakistan, but, they went to English medium private schools when they were kids, and like my dad, before Connecticut, he lived in England, and he did his residency there, and was like, so they both have like a deep sort of fondness for Western European and American culture, so.
But I know when I met your mother, like I know that the other is important to them, right?
Of course, totally.
Like, it
wasn't like it wasn't whitewashed,
right?
From like we weren't forbidden from behaving like Pakistani people,
right?
But I don't know. There's a lot to sort of unpack in that question.
And it's one of those things too. As you get older, you start to think about different things, like, oh, that moment meant this actually. Yeah. And it took me 30 years to realize that, or whatever. Or that because this didn't happen, maybe that meant something that I didn't know until now. You know what I mean? You just sort of.
I mean, like there was.
My
folks were definitely like strict with me, and like certain things that white or whatever, like American, whatever people. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm like trying to be politically correct.
You can call me whatever you want. It's all right.
Dumb white people. I mean,
it's so great. Thank you.
Dumb white people. No, it's like, I wasn't allowed to have, like, my folks were like, you're never going to have a girlfriend. Like, like in high school, like, I remember, like, begging my mom to, like, because the girl liked me, and she's like, no, you can't. You don't have a girlfriend, and, like, they had, like, they were definitely, there was, like, a level of control. So there was this sort of, like, they didn't want us, there were certain things about American culture, I think, that they were apprehensive about, mainly, like, girls and, like, smoking marijuana and, like,
just going out.
Going off the deep end in some kind of,
what time you had to be home is different than everybody else. Just even little things like, your friends can be home at 8 p.m., but you got to be home at 6. Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's always the little bit of extra. No. They're allowed to do that, but you're not.
Yeah.
Them. You have to do what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have something written down called improvisation. I just wanted to hear any kind of thoughts about improvisation. And I had something, Sam, I remember we played a gig for a CD release party of mine, and you had this solo, this time to improvise, and it was all these changes, and you just played whole notes on every single measure. And it wasn't like
was I trolling him?
It wasn't just the roots,
it?
but no, it was the sickest thing I've seen in a while. Like, it was really powerful that you were just doing that, and it's just like the idea of that, like what it means to improvise. Like for people who don't really know about that, or maybe for people who do, like, what's your take on it? What is it? What is improvisation? Is it just like learning licks and playing them? What's going on here?
Well, absolutely not, and that's what we were talking about, the virtuo thing, like.
Like here's my pattern.
Yeah.
Now you play your pattern.
Oh, I have an open bass solo thing. I better play something real fast and.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, the room, right?
What's that?
That's how I kind of think, like,
This is her thing.
feel in the room.
Yeah. She's all
Yeah, feeling the space, and I mean that's the for me like the most amazing thing about learning jazz and improvised music was it's like using your hands or your mouth to develop a sound on your instrument that's unamplified. So it's like, you know, you're not, there's no aid of amplification or electronics, or, you know, it's like getting to the most, like, the essential part of yourself, your voice as an instrumentalist, but without the aid of anything other than your appendages, you know.
This improvising thing is this open-ended, crazy thing we can do, but sometimes the best things are just the things that are the simplest, right? So, for instance, you know, I never like talking about my own playing, but let's say a solo improvised area like that, and I'm just playing whole notes, is because I absolutely freaking love the way the bass sounds.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it sounded like when you were doing it. It was just like, listen to this sound.
So this, and it wasn't me showing you, it was me reacting to that instrument in that room.
Yeah.
You know, it was away from me.
I thought you misread the chart for a minute, and then I was like, no, he's doing this, and it's sick, you know?
You'll never know.
But you know how many people would be like, no, I better play some stuff. Now. I've done enough of that. And you just did it the whole solos.
And it's that thing, it's like the vibration and that, and how your instrument is vibrating against another unamplified instrument. And, you know, like what we did just here, you know, like, kind of alters your consciousness.
So every time I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then we play once, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let's keep doing the project. I swear to God, every single time I'm like, all right, I guess we keep doing it. Woo!
You want to check, make sure nothing's
Pin up COVID shit right there, huh?
core audio, like it's just the
Yeah, exactly.